I'm back. I got a very sore throat and my voice has gone a bit funny, but this is the Spitfire. In this video we're going to be hopefully sticking the engine in. We've basically done everything to it. I'm going to walk you through now and we'll have a quick look and see what's happened. I can't quite remember what we've done in the last video to what got finished. But now we have the distributor on, we've got the timing for the firing order sorted. Then we still need to crank it and set the timing properly. Carburetors are on, air filters are on that Josh has cleaned up nicely for me. We've got the slave cylinder on with the push rod, which I was a little worried about, but that's all sorted. All the engine mounts are on, got the valve cover bolted on and down with a new gasket, obviously cork gasket in there, and a new cap put on, which come from a subscriber through Instagram who messaged me a little while ago. It's taken me this long to put it on any cars because I never got around to it. I'm a lazy fucker. Yeah, so thank you very much for that. You know who you are. I do appreciate it. Ideally, the next things we need to be doing to this engine is we need to be sorting out the alignment of the water pump, the alternator and the crank pulley. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but they are fairly out. I'm looking at it sort of straight down. The pulley goes in further than everything else. The water pump is from a 1500, which is incorrect. I've ordered one for a 2000 engine, which will fix that as they don't stick out quite as far. And then the alternator, what we are going to do is this spacer here, we're going to take a little bit off of it and we're going to move it around the back. That's going to move the alternator back. One thing that is going to do though, it's going to put a bigger gap between our alternator and bracket. So we're going to have to come up with either a washers or like a bar or something to go in between there. It's just going to space it out and keep it nice and solid. As obviously we can't bolt it up and bolt it then the bracket. That would just be a bit sketch. I know I'm a little bit, I do like a bit of sketch sometimes, but maybe not on something I care about this much. Alright, we're going to wheel it out now and hopefully get it lifted up. Alright, so box in now. We've noticed that the bracket for this is actually a different size to the bracket down there. So we're going to put it in, mark it up, drill the holes out, and hopefully that will fit in there just fine. So we've got a little update from the last video clip that you just saw of us trying to put the engine in the car. After that we figured out the engine isn't going to fit because the support towers for the suspension and the engine mountings are different on the GT6 to the Spitfire, which I didn't know, but I've learnt that now. Also, the prop shaft is a different length, as we figured out, so it's awesome we did do that test fit because now we know a lot more things than we didn't. It has now been a couple of weeks, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It is now January the 17th, and I've been ordering some car parts. We've got a prop shaft for a Triumph GT6 with overdrive and some GT6/Vitesse front supports for the suspension. So that is all good. We're just going to get these cleaned up and painted up now. We're going to get one of my mates to sandblast this. You saw him in the last video, Josh. So he's going to get these sandblasted for me, and I'll do the prop shaft myself because that ain't going to fit in his tank. But these two bits will, which is awesome. And say hello to Lucky, there's a dog. So the next few things that we need to get for this car, I don't know how HS4s are going to work. I'm only using them because I currently have them, so I'm going to see how they go on the engine. Part of me thinks that they're not going to be strong enough to cope with all the extraness of this engine. Another 500cc and another 2 cylinders. One of the things we do need to get though is we need to get an exhaust manifold for the inline-6, which we currently do not have. We are going to get one, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait for that. That's also going to be heat wrapped, so I'm hoping that maybe we can get an exhaust manifold before we put the engine in. But if we don't, it's not a problem. I'll run it out of manifold for a little while. One thing that does currently worry me about this setup we've got for the clutch master cylinder. One thing, the pipe is the wrong size. I need to change the end on the pipe because that master cylinder is bigger than the Spitfire, so we've got to sort that out. Another thing is there's a little bit of movement in, there you go, there's a little bit of movement in the fork. I'm hoping that the cylinder is going to be able to push out far enough to then put pressure on it. So that's one thing we're going to have to figure out. If not, I have to get a longer pin, which isn't the end of the world, but it's one of them things that we're going to have to learn and figure out along the way. Another thing that later on we do want to do to this engine is we'd like to do a spin-on filter conversion for an oil cooler as well. and also to one thing we do have to do. I don't know if you can see, but the alternator is actually out of alignment with everything. This is the alternator off of the 1500 engine, so the spacing is a little wrong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this spacer at the end here, move the small bit round to the back, move the spacer backwards a little bit. I've been putting the job off for a little while because I can't be arsed with it, but I think I will do it soon. Yeah, so what we're going to do now is start with sanding down the prop shaft and cracking on with it, really. It's probably going to be a couple weeks before we see any real progress. We're planning on having this all done by around March. Well, I'd like to have it done in the middle of February, currently January 17th, so I've got about a month to have this finished. I reckon it's definitely doable. So I wasn't going to do any work tonight, but I started cleaning up the prop shaft instead. Yeah, starting to look a little shinier. I'm not too worried about cleaning everything in every single little nook and cranny, just because it's something that's not going to be seen very often, if at all, really. And the gearbox isn't even painted anyway. I'm really tempted to paint it, but I haven't just yet. Yeah, so we've just done the prop shaft tonight, and we're going to clean it all out and primer it another night. I'm just gonna go indoors, have a dinner, and that'll be that for tonight. Alright then, so we got a little bit carried away with not updating you of what's been going on. Basically, I've cleaned up one of them and I've already primed it. That's in the carport at the minute, drying. At the minute we've just gotten to this one and we've started hitting it with the flat disc on the grinder over there. And now we're going around it with a bit of sandpaper, just trying to get all the rest of the rust off of it, or as much as I can. And then we're going to primer this one as well. I have already ground down the prop shaft and made that look all nice. I've primed it, painted it and clear coated it, so I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, this is how far we've got at the minute, and hopefully I'm going to get this one primed again as well tonight, and tomorrow hopefully move on to putting paint on it, which would be nice. So here's the first one I painted. I mounted it upside down for some reason. Got a little run down the side here, but I'm not really too worried about these components as they're going to be out of the way, and it's not going to be something that's going to be seen very easily. So yeah, we're going to probably leave it like that and then spray over the top of it. And then if we come across to the other side, I've freshly painted this one, which is drying at the minute, which is why it's so shiny still. Must have done the other one about half an hour to 40 minutes ago. This one has just been painted. I did get a little run on this one as well. Once again, I'm not really too worried about it. I'm not exactly sure where it was. Oh, it's right there actually. Just about to see it on camera. And then if we come across here, we can see something I did earlier. We did the prop shaft. This is a GT6 with overdrive prop shaft. It's been painted in a Toyota Tacoma grey, which is the colour of the engine as well, and it actually looks really nice. Once again, we can see the engine over here. I did say I wasn't going to paint the gearbox, but at this point I'm thinking I might, just depending on what goes on, because I'm hoping to maybe get the engine in this weekend, and if I run out of time and I can't paint the gearbox, I'm not going to worry about it. So yeah, that's what I've got done so far. I'm going to carry on, maybe tomorrow night paint the rest of it, maybe tonight. I'll update you what happens. Okay, so as this one was dry, I decided to paint it. We've done the first coat. I'm probably going to do another coat. It's a bit thin in places, and as you can see, where I started to put it on a little bit thick, it started to splatter out a little bit and make a very uneven coat. So I've done a little bit of a light coat, and then I'm going to do another light coat, and then hopefully that will be that sorted. As you can see, it's a little bit greeny in some places. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I definitely can. We'll be doing 2 coats on these, and then I'll be clear coating it, and then that should be done, ready to just sit and dry until I can get out the front of the car. Really want to paint this one tonight as well, but it's taking forever to dry, so we'll see. Alright, so it's the next day. I've got back from work, and the first thing I've done is come out in the garage. I've done 2 more coats on these. They are starting to look very yellowy. There doesn't seem to be much greeny showing through right now. So we're probably going to wait for this to dry, do 1 more coat, and then a couple lacquers coat, and then it will be ready for them to go on the car. We're not going to worry about any of the runs. As I said before, it's not something that's going to be seen, so I'm not too worried about it. It just needs to be yellow. Yep, so I'm going to do those other coats, and I will check back in a minute.
You ready?
Yep. idling! That's idling! No! Alright, shut it off. Forward, isn't it? Alright, so I haven't picked up the camera for a really long time. And the engine is now in. We've got a radiator mocked up. Obviously, it's still not finished. I'm just going to run you through what we've done in the time that I haven't been picking up the camera. It's been a couple of weeks. Obviously, the last thing that you saw me doing, I was fitting the strut towers. So these are GT6 or Triumph 2 or the tests, I believe. Strut towers. I'm not sure which ones they are. I think there's something to do with the bracket. I think it's a GT6 one. Looking at the bracket, I'm not sure. They're all fitted, all the suspensions together. Obviously, we are still running the same Spax front springs, which obviously, as you can see, they are quite compressed in there. I'm gonna have to put some uprated GT6 springs on the shocks to allow this thing to have some travel again. But at this point, we're just gonna leave it and see how it drives for now. And if they need to be changed, we will change them, of course. Another thing that I've done off camera is we've changed the sump for a GT6 sump. Obviously, this engine came out of a Triumph 2000 Mark II, and the sumps are different to clear the chassis rail at the front here, as you can see. Luckily, I bought another engine which had come out of a Spitfire, so I just took the sump off of that and put that on this engine, and then it fitted like a treat. So that's great news. It's a bit squished in here, but you can see the gearbox. One thing I did have to do, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but the gearbox mount underneath here had to have a obviously it was a overdrive gearbox mounting plate. I'm assuming they're the same for Spitfire and the GT6. It's just the fact that it has overdrive brings it back a little bit. So we had to fit one of those. That's all good in there now. Obviously, we need to put all the interior back together once I figure out the wiring for the overdrive. Now we're coming on to the bits where what bits we need to complete it. At this point, we are looking at a new exhaust, because I'm not going to buy a full standard exhaust system for it when I'm eventually going to put a stainless system on it anyway. So I'm just getting money together at the minute so I can get a GT6 full stainless exhaust system for this. And obviously we have to run different carburetors because the dash pots on these carbs sit too high and they hit the bonnet, which is not good news at all. And I'm not cutting a hole in the top of the bonnet that I've literally just painted. Unfortunately, it is now at that point where I'm almost running out of things to do to this until I have the intake and exhaust manifolds. Obviously, I can finish the cooling system. It's literally just going to be 2 pipes at this point, and testing it, and a fan off of eBay with a switch. Other than that, there's not really much I can do. I can't really fit the bonnet. I mean, I could, but I'll have to take the carbs off just to fit the bonnet. That's going to be held on by hood pins. The idea for fitting the hood is we're going to run a hood pin through the front bumper here into the bottom of the bonnet on both sides, and then up the top. So we're going to have 4 hood pins and the bonnet's going to be fully removable. We're going to be focused on carburetors. We've removed the old SUs as we're not going to be using those, and we are going to be moving to a set of Strongworks, which is just down here. What we're going to be doing in this video is we are going to be well, in this part of the video we are going to be fitting the Strongwork carburetors and getting them running, and hopefully sorting out all the coolant lines. I have got fans on order for the radiator, so we're going to be fitting those. We've got a load of other little bits and pieces to be doing. Hopefully within the following next couple of weeks, maybe month or two, this thing will be back on the road. So that is the plan for what we're going to be doing. We do have the correct studs on order and bolts and washers, but we are just going to be test fitting it in a minute, as obviously it's got to come off at some point to change the manifold, because we're going to be putting a full stainless system on this car. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be robbing some studs from this old manifold over here to use on this manifold here to bolt it to the engine block. What we're going to be doing for that is we're just going to put 2 bolts together, tighten them up, then you're going to get a spanner, maybe not this one, but we're going to get a spanner and pull it, undo it, and that will pull the stud out of the manifold, as you will be able to see. Now, to be honest, this one was not very tight, but once I got my spanner on there, as you can see, it then broke off loose and is now coming out of the manifold just like that. Really easy little job to do, and that might be the wrong thread, to be honest, to go into the manifold. I'll have to check that quickly, but I'm damn sure that's the wrong thread. So we might not be able to use those. Let me check that quickly. Alright, so this is where we're going to leave it today. What we have done is we've obviously fitted the carburetors. We've only put the top bolts in for now. We haven't put the bottom ones in just yet. We will be doing that soon. That should be tight enough just to get it to run for now, just to make sure everything works. We've hooked out the throttle cable. The choke cable for the 1500 is actually too short, as the choke is over this side. One thing I'd like to know is on the SU carburetors, these ones have only got a choke on one carb. Is this normal? I'm not sure if this is normal. I'll be having a look online, but I've had a look at some pictures online, and all other GT6s I see seem to only have the one cable on this side. So I'm not really too sure on that. Another thing we've got to figure out is, obviously we've got this around the back here. The SU's had a vacuum line, which is this bit here. This line here, go around to the other side. That goes to the distributor. I'm not sure if that's what this is for, but we'll be trying that out as well. I'm not too sure if this or this go to anything, but I'm pretty sure this is fuel and this is fuel. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running from the standard line. We're going to be using an actual GT6 T-junction piece in here to go around, and we're going to use some fuel line to go around this bit and then up into here. So that'll be all good, hopefully. The thing I'm doing right now is I'm doing all my coolant hoses. I've just put those on. I've just fitted this one up the top here. On the 1500 I wasn't actually utilising this at all to run hot or cold air, but I've now lubricated and freed this up, so I'm now connecting it up, so I'll be able to change between hot air and still quite warm air. Obviously we've hooked this up to here. I'm not sure this is right, because obviously this is going to be giving off the same, it's going to be either pushing or pulling, so we're not going to get a flow through the heater matrix, which I'm not really too worried about. I don't really need the heater matrix to even be there, to be honest. So part of me thinks I might just join these two together and lose the heater matrix altogether. We're not sure just yet. It is underneath here. It's going to be just this piece here to the manifold here, which once again I have no idea on the flow or how this is supposed to go. So we're just gonna we're gonna put it together, run it, and find out if it works. Not really worried about getting hot air inside the vehicle, as I said in the last clip, but we might delete that. One of the next jobs I need to figure out is, obviously this is the speedo cable for the gauge cluster that came off of the 1500 gearbox. This is obviously different to the GT6 gearbox, so that is inside the car. What we're going to do is be running that out into the vehicle, and we're going to take this out of the gauge and check to see if they have the same input. If they do, happy days, we'll just be able to screw that in. If they're not, then we may have to change a gauge to something out of a GT6 or whatever the gearbox came from. So either out of a GT6 or it came out of a 2000 Mark II. Not entirely sure. I've been told that they're the same, so hopefully it shouldn't matter. A gauge out of one of those vehicles will be just fine. At the minute we are waiting for loads of bolts to turn up. I'm changing all of the bolts on the intake and exhaust manifold for studs and and nuts and washers. So we are going to be waiting for those to turn up, then we're going to change it all over. We have a new gasket to go on as well, but we're not going to be putting that on until we have the exhaust and change the exhaust too. We're also waiting for lots and lots of brackets, so we're waiting for a load of these coolant brackets and brackets for the fuel lines. They've got to turn up, and once I said before, we've also got the GT6 T-junction piece that goes on the Strongberg carbs. So once they all turn up, hopefully we'll be able to get it running. That should be at the end of this week, which will be quite exciting. Alright guys, we're back at it again. We've finally finished the hardtop for the car. So I've now got the stand out here for the bonnet, which is lovely, because we'll be able to continue fitting the headlights on this now. What I'm currently doing at the minute is I'm fitting some radiator fans to the radiator. Obviously I've not had the engine running yet, because I've not got the right parts for the carburetors to get the fueling in. But what I'm doing at the minute, obviously I'm just fitting the cooling fans. I'm just using the universal kit, so I'll be finished that in a minute. What I'm doing is I'm putting little rubber spacers between the fans so it doesn't rub against the radiator. We've got two 7-inch ones on there. Obviously, being a widened radiator for a Spitfire, it's a bit of an awkward size, so we can't just fit one big one on there. We've got to put two small ones on there, which will be better for cooling, I hope. Today is just stick the fans on, do a little bit of the wiring. I haven't got a switch at the minute, so I won't be able to wire them in fully, but I'll be able to wire them, run the wires into the car, and have it all ready to be, had a switch put in and ready to go. So that is the plan for today. Let's see how far we get with that. Jumping forward in time a little bit, since the last clip we've had the fuel pipes turn up and I've fitted those. It's only temporarily fitted up, so there's no actual brackets on here. We're going to try and get it running. I made up this pipe to go around here. I'm assuming, I don't know about these cars, I'm assuming this is fuel in and this is fuel out, possibly the overflow. Not really sure at this point, but obviously we'll find out when we crank it over. I've also had the filter come in for the can cover because we're not going to be running a pipe from here to here at this point. None of the coolant pipes are actually done up. We do have a little bit of coolant in there. We're only going to run it for a second. Cable turn up, so that is now fitted. We've got a little clip as well, so if you ever do put carbs on and you don't have this clip, make sure you get hold of that because you're never going to be able to fit it without it. Obviously that's all fitted on the inside now. We're still waiting for a speedo cable for a GT6 so that we can get the speedo to work on this engine. But yeah, we're going to give it a crank quickly and see if it will start. Alright then, let's see what happens. Not a whole lot. Let's have a look, see what we got. Basically, I checked that it was getting fuel to the carbs, and it was, and I just cranked it again, and nothing really happened. So I thought, you know what, just to eliminate the fact that it could be the fact that it's not getting fuel for whatever reason, I used a bit of brake cleaner down the intakes, turned it over, it fired up straight away, and just continued to run. So it is now running perfectly fine. I'll start it for you just now.
Like a Hellcat.